Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of X Vlog Live. Now, folks, don't panic. It's not going to be me speaking for 60 and 70 minutes alone. King David is racing to get here. He should be here momentarily. And I, Steel Rain, who was supposed to also join us, had a family emergency. So, of course, hearts and hugs go out to him and his family. Hopefully, everything is okay. But listen, we have already 100 people here. We're 49 seconds into what is expected to be a show packed with big opinions, lots of information we're going to go on to. And folks, as the name has been coined by numerous people, including King David and myself, lying, crying, dance moves, Jim Ryan has done it again, folks. Not only has he lied to regulators around the globe, speaking of which, King David, my brother, what's going on, dude? How the heck are you?
I'm fantastic. I can't complain. What were we talking about, Boom?
Well, I was talking about that Jim Ryan, who has earned his name as Jim Lion, Dance Moves, Crying. Jim Ryan basically did what he has been doing for quite some time. And I hope you don't hear the buzzing because they're cutting the grass just as we went started. So hopefully he moves away. But yeah, so listen, we're going to get into a couple of things. It's just going to be me and you. I Still Rain had a family emergency. So again, hopefully everything is okay on his end. And we'll get him back here next week. But King, a couple of breaking news things. Are the CMA playing games? Well, it turns out that they tried to delay the Microsoft decision until October of 2023. And guess what, King? They were denied by the CAT tribunal, who was not falling for their shenanigans, if you will. I'll read exactly what they had to say. But you know what? I want to start off with Jim Ryan. Obviously, he was deposed via a video. I think that was good for the FTC because the cross-examination was limited because that was done in April. A lot of things has transpired since then, King. And it turns out that Jim Ryan not only was okay with the acquisition, he said that Microsoft needed it to compete. And then, of course, we're going to get into what he requested. Folks, listen, if I didn't read this in court documents, I would think that I was lying. King, I have the document in front of me. I want to read verbatim of exactly what Jim Ryan. Now, folks, understand. Let me paint the picture for you. Okay. What I'm about to read to you live on the air is an email that was unearthed as evidence during the current hearing with the FTC versus Microsoft for the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. King. Now, what is being requested by Jim Ryan is so over the top bonkers, King, that I don't even have a word for it. Now, again, this is just part of a giant email to Phil Spencer. And basically, I'm going to read it. But before I read it, I just want to make it short so you understand exactly where I'm coming from. King, not only did Jim Ryan request that he wanted not just Call of Duty, but all current and future Activision titles in order to sign this 10-year deal. But he wanted all of Bethesda's content, old and new. But it gets even worse, folks, and I'm not making this up because I'm going to read it verbatim in a second. He wanted Game Pass parity for free on PlayStation Plus. I'm not making this up, folks. This is actually he actually requested this. So bear with me as I read this, King, and then we're going to get to your hot take, and I'm sure it's going to be incredibly hot. This is the whole email I have in front of me, or at least a part of it. It says the third term of our proposal simply recognizes the reality that upon completion of the acquisition of Activision, it would not seem to make logical sense for the financial. marketing, and other agreements previously negotiated between SIE and Activision to continue to apply in this post-acquisition world. We believe this is a common sense step is to benefit both Microsoft and SIE. Regarding Bethesda, though, I was making a more general point during our discussion that equal treatment of Bethesda games would be a logical subject for the parties to discuss because it involves some of the same concerns as the availability and or unequal treatment of Activision games. We would welcome discussing this subject as part of an agreement that advances the two fundamental principles discussed above. We'd appreciate your confirming that these terms are acceptable as a framework for the parties to negotiate an appropriate written agreement. If you can confirm this, I will instruct my team to get started immediately on preparing an agreement that can be finalized following negotiations with your team. Please let me know if you have any other further questions. Regards, Jim. Is he out of his damn mind? Is he actually asking for future and current Activision Blizzard content? King, he's also asking for everything future and current for Bethesda that includes Starfield, and he wants all of this to be parity at no cost to PlayStation in PlayStation Plus. I'm honestly, I'm speechless.
I'm not. When you're used to certain advantages being the market leader, when you're used to being an arrogant douche, you would have the audacity to do that. Jim didn't write that. All right, so the first email that that was correspondence between himself and Phil, it was Phil, talking to him and then him rebutting, and then well, his rebuttal seemed like the lawyer wrote it. The
Possibly.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't. Because it turned from a very casual, uh how could you say it, contemporary talking to another contemporary, into business jargon immediately with his rebuttal. And his rebuttal, you can't get upset with him trying to use his leverage, because in his brain he believed PlayStation is the end all be all, and you need PlayStation in order to survive, uh because people have placated his ego to the point that it's so inflated he can't see the forest for the trees. That's the same thing when he says stuff like, all the developers I've spoken to says Game Pass hurts the market and they don't like it. Well, you're talking only internally. You're talking to your people. You're talking to
Yeah.
the choir. That's like me believing that Xbox is the most fantastic console in the world, and there's no peer. That's me talking to the people that's on Twitter in my echo chamber, right? That's exactly what's going on, and that's what he's doing, right? So it's like it's a shame to see him try to use that leverage, but I don't begrudge him for doing so. If you know what a massive, massive get Starfield is, and if it turns out to be the next Oblivion, the next Skyrim, the next Fallout, if it turns out to be what I believe to be Todd Howard's seminal, Todd
Yes.
Howard, this could be Todd Howard's last game, right? Think
Right.
about it this way. Think about him talking to Phil, and him talking to all his contemporaries in the space, and this is the one that he always wanted to make. This is the one, because how I see it is the world was telling Todd Howard he was great when he was making Fallout and he was making Skyrim and all this other stuff. The world was telling him he was great. This is him telling the world I'm great. This is him showing it, right?
Yeah.
Jordan for years heard uh that he was great, It wasn't until the flu game where he had to show you his greatness. And that was probably one of his greatest performances, that he showed you who he was. So I believe this is Todd's moment to show the world who he is. And I believe everybody knows that. Um, the email in question that set a fire underneath his bottom was when that email there, when Phil rebutted it.
Yeah, that's the
And
August email. And
yes,
King, let me just clarify for some people, because there's been some confusion as to what happened. The quote unquote email in August. This is
right,
what King is about to describe is the disturbing email following his ridiculous request.
right. That Phil doubling down on no. That makes absolute, and I'm paraphrasing. All right. I'm not reading verbatim. I'm just going off of memory, and I'm going off of how I interpreted it. Like, nah, it doesn't make any sense for us to purchase stuff and give you the stuff that we got them for. We got them for exclusive content and all the stuff in perpetuity that has been there. Whatever has been on your platform before, you will continue to get these things. This will continue to happen. Jim Ego got too ahead of himself.
Yep.
Jim Ego, how dare he talk to me? Like, everybody has to realize we're talking about people with substantial bank accounts. Okay. Now, take that, magnify that by the market leader in a gaming space. He hears the accolades. It's the same way as an athlete. Sometimes y'all see athletes and you'll say, "Wow, man, he's so big headed." Like, I don't even understand. Like, how did you get like that? Or celebrities, wow, like he's such a douche. It didn't start that way. You started reading your press clippings. You started listening to the people that was giving you adulations, and you didn't listen to the people that were trying to ground you. Right? When I go on Twitter, I leave it as an open space unless you're disrespectful. If you're disrespectful, you curse at me, then I'll block you. But other than that, I'm gonna allow you to speak your piece, because maybe I don't see the forest for the trees. Maybe I'm too close to a situation that I need to be grounded, right? But I also don't have a bank account like these two individuals. So again, one individual was trying to sun, and when I say that, all right, when I come from, that is Junior somebody. That's put your hand on their shoulder. Yeah, Junior. You understand? One individual tied to Junior, another individual, and this is the point where him little brothering Phil, and Phil not taking it. Like, it's a moment where that your little brother that you used to beat up all the time, and he stood up to you, and you like, how dare he? And
How
then you
dare
go
he stand up to me? I'm
right.
the king.
and
Yeah.
and he goes overboard. Well, going overboard got him over in front of Brazil. Going overboard got him to call in his favors from the CMA and
Yep.
the FTC. So going overboard got him into a place like, shoot, I really did this. Wow, we're here now. Can't take it back, right? But you're gonna see how powerful I am, and so he wanted to have the Bethesda stuff. He wanted to have the Activision stuff in perpetuity, and Phil wasn't budging from his position, because his position is a position of power. Phil knows that financially we dwarf you. I was
Yes.
playing nice. Don't get me playing nice confused with me being nice. You know, I being that when you're in a workspace, you have to play nice with your fellow
Your
employees,
peers, if you will.
right? Yeah, your peers.
Yeah.
You have to play nice with them, because that's the only way to get things done, right? And we're talking about corporate workspace. So trust me, when I stopped the Jamaican gym thing, it was because a contemporary of his knew it hurt him. You understand? So they reached out to me as a friend. So that's what friends do. They see, oh, your peers. That's what peers do. Yo, you know what? Let me look out for old boy. Because this bothers him. And in turn, so Phil was being nice in that space, but Phil wants to win. Phil is the ultimate competitor. So is Jim. Let's keep it real. Jim using what he has and how he has it. Sony does not have the same money as Microsoft, and Jim alluded to that when he said, it's not about an exclusivity play. They have bigger goals than that, and they have the money to do it. So him saying that knows financially they can outspend us. Shout out to Matt Booty. I call him the shooter. Shout out to Matt Booty.
Yep.
For, I know the email looks a little bit damaging, but the email is like, we just spend them out of business.
Yeah, but that's business.
Yeah, but this is capitalism. All right. We excuse me. In capitalism, weak businesses are cannibalized. That's what cannibalism is. That's what capitalism is. Weak businesses that can't stand on their own are cannibalized. That's what happens. This is the reason why mom and pop shops go crazy when Walmart moves close. This is what happens when you know Amazon pulls up to a mom and pop shop and is across the street. The businesses start to decline. If your business is weak and not strong, it won't survive. So either you get down or you lay down. Either you consolidate and merge with someone who is a stronger entity, or you fall. This is what happens. That's why some of the emails said that they wanted to purchase Sony. I respect it. Jim knew the bigger play. I respect what he has to do. Do I like it? No. The same way Jim says, we'll be fine. But then he thought about it. We won't be fine because this is the last year of Call of Duty with them. And I told people before, King, they got it up to 2026. No, they don't, bro. And you keep reading the wrong stuff. But I'm not going to sit there and fight nobody over anything. I'll just let the emails and stuff come out. And then it comes out, oh, snap. It'll be in Game Pass this year. This dude crazy.
Well, I mean, listen, King, to your point, if Sony doesn't have the marketing rights for Call of Duty 2024, I mean, it's safe to assume that Microsoft does. And if Microsoft does, that means
they own them, they don't give them back.
That's right. Once they get them, like you like to say, got them.
That's it.
They got them, right? And Game Pass becomes more of a lucrative possibility for many people because Call of Duty's in there next fall.
Well, Call of Duty will be in there this year. And I'll stand on that. Call of Duty will be inside Game Pass this year. I will stand on that. They will pay whatever fine they need to pay to allow that to be. All right. That's not a breach of contract. But see, this is the reason why Jim wanted parity with Game Pass and PlayStation Now.
Yep.
Because if you're going to put it inside Game Pass, you own it. Okay, cool. We just can't market it. You have the marketing rights. We're gonna oblige by that. But all our first party games, which is in their bylaws, will be inside Game Pass. That will be a first party title. So that it automatically goes inside Game Pass. So it supersedes whatever contract that you do have. But the contract is a marketing contract where, all right, fine. You have the marketing rights. Good. Market it. Still going inside Game Pass, B. And I'm going to stand on that. And when it happens, it's going to be such a blow. And I'm not going to front. Jim knew that, knows it, and says, no. If it's going to be inside your service, because he knows the service is lacking, send it over here too. And we don't want to pay anything. You're out of your mind, Bucko.
Yeah, it's
That's
madness.
not how it happens.
Yeah, it's arrogance, balls of steel. I don't know what reference you're going to use in this conversation. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to say madman, because there comes a point and time, King, where the arrogance of one said person, Jim Ryan, is so bonkers that you just have to sit back in your chair and be like, this can't be real. But folks, it's real. Now, what I wind up doing is, thanks to Tom Warren of The Verge, who's a friend of the show and obviously a great friend to the community, I specifically pulled a story that was written by Pure Xbox. It was by Fraser Gilbert. It was yesterday. I have that email to Jim Ryan from Phil Spencer telling him no. And this is the quote unquote, folks, word for word, start to finish email that Jim Ryan said under oath in a box that disturbed him. And this is again verbatim, and this is from Phil Spencer, head of Microsoft Gaming. Thanks for your response. As I stated to you in my emails and our calls, Sony is an important distributor of Xbox content and we would like to find a way to maintain that relationship once we've closed the Activision acquisition. I continue to stand behind behind the written agreement I sent to you on January 31st of 2022 with my signature memorializing our commitment to Sony. The agreement would keep all existing Activision console titles on Sony, including future versions of Call of Duty franchise and or any other current Activision franchises on Sony through December 31st, 2027. That includes content and feature parity, as well as making it clear that we would not feature any timed exclusive releases as such content on Xbox consoles. It is hard to align the principles set out in your email of May 26, 2022, with Sony's leading role in the market. As I said before, we believe keeping these titles on Sony, as we did with Minecraft, is the right thing for the industry and for its gamers. And that, folks, is the disturbing email, because that's basically, in a proper way, King, Phil Spencer telling Jim Ryan to go F himself on his request of Game Pass parity for free, all of the Bethesda content, now future and current, and all of the future and current Activision title. Is he out of his freaking
No,
mind?
it's I'm gonna defend his position always, because his position is he has to worry about his shareholders. He has to worry about where he works. He has to worry about his company remaining number one. His bonuses is tied to him being number one. All that stuff that you read in some of these emails where they talk about their fan base or their consumers, it's not about that with him. And I want y'all to make that blatantly clear. When Satya tells you something, and I thought that this was a little bit of hyperbole on Satya's part, but I think he believes it in his heart, and I'm going to explain that Satya doesn't like the world in which we have to game where there are exclusives. He wants to be in a world where there aren't exclusives. Now, that lends to Microsoft's model of being on PC, being anywhere that you have a screen that has Game Pass, right? The Game Pass thing within itself is a conundrum, because the Game Pass thing itself is the exclusive. That's the part there, right? So it's not like your game, like you can take a Microsoft disc and put it inside your PlayStation. That's being everywhere. You understand? And I don't think he's going that far with it. So I think that's a little bit of hyperbole on his part. But Jim recognizes the idea and understands what exclusives does. It accounted for 15% of their revenue, which is a high mark of their revenue of 2022, I believe. Excuse me. Now, 800 million was brought in by Call of Duty alone in that whole fiscal period,
Yep.
in that whole fiscal year. That's a hell of a lot of money. Now, if that is funding, because I told people before, when Jim is talking from a position of saying not enough, you're not enough, he's looking at our AAA bang is only bringing 15%, right? So you have to look at where's the other 85% at, like what's going on here, right? So the other 85% is brought in by other entities, third-party deals and stuff of that nature. And Call of Duty brings in a boatload of cash.
Yep.
All right. This is why he was so enamored in the business model of a game of service, because he looks at Call of Duty as a game of service, not Warzone, as Call of Duty, because he doesn't understand how Bobby Kotick and the teams can actually churn out games of that quality year on end. So when he looks at that, and he looks at Fortnite, and he looks at Apex Legends, and then he looks at to a lesser degree other games that's in that ilk, he says he can see a consistent revenue stream. That's why it's going games of service. So for him to try to acquire Starfield, because this is all about Starfield. This is the reason why you
Yep.
see the FTC negotiating on Sony's behalf in the courtroom.
Madness.
The FTC doesn't care to lose. They just want a challenge.
Right.
And they just want to show we're doing our job. Big tech is trying to merger, and we're here to stop it because this was their creed. We're going to stop all big mergers from happening. We're going to be opposed for all big tech consolidating against big tech. Cool, I get it. That's what you're going to do. But the FTC is actually negotiating on Sony's behalf in the courtroom. Is this game going to be there? What about this game? What about Diablo? What about this? What about that?
I've never seen anything quite like it, King.
It's unprofessional.
100%. Yeah.
But when you look back at it, their lawyer used to work for Sony.
Yeah.
So come on, man. Stop. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Right. And I understand it. So I understand this is business, and he's supposed to negotiate, and he's supposed to use the tactics he has because he doesn't have the money. Did you see what the lawyers on Microsoft's side was doing to these guys?
Yeah, it was pretty shredding would be the nicest way I can put it. Embarrassing,
Yeah.
outclassed in every way possible. King, that just at every corner. And again, it makes you wonder because I know. Listen, we don't know the way. You know, obviously, the hearing is ongoing right now. The Nintendo, the guy from the gentleman or the representative from Nintendo got spoken to first. Amy Hood is expected to be there, and she's a shark, so I don't think it's going to be any problems. I will say though, I think I can say this with full authority, King. If anyone thinks that the judge that's overseeing this is going to side with the FTC on the way that they have handled the first 4 days, you are I don't know what you're hoping for because that's not going to happen. The deal is going to go through. It is a vertical merger, and the thing that Microsoft has on their side, King, is history. In the past 50 years, there's never been a block of a vertical merger. There's never been a PI issued to stop a vertical merger. And Microsoft has proven time and time again, both through Satya Nadella yesterday, who under oath said the content is going to remain on PlayStation. And that's following, of course, hearing that from Phil Dominus. I don't know how much more that they need, King.
Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you, they can keep their letter of the law, but they don't have to put Call of Duty out every year.
No, they do not. No, and they said that they were gonna scale it back.
You gotta look.
There are 8 studios that make this one game. 8 studios. That is a waste of talent.
But if it's a moneymaker, see, this is what you don't want to do. You do not want to throw out the baby with the bathwater just because you're trying to eliminate your competition, right? And I would say this. You can keep with what the FTC say and the CMA says and stuff like that. You can keep to the letter of the law. By every time that this game does come out, it does launch on a completing platform, but that doesn't mean it has to come out every year. And you can break that cadence up because remember, Call of Duty used to skip years, and then it got to a point where you had Treyarch one year, and then you had the other team the next year, and they started flip-flopping it. And we always knew which one was the best one by which team was making it. So why not give that team the Call of Duty and do it every other year, right? That removes 800 million, excuse me, worth of revenue from the PlayStation board in that fiscal period. So they have to operate in that fiscal period on that 15% of the AAA bangers. Now, Jim just told you that they were scaling back AAA bangers every year.
Yep.
So you, with scaling back, removing that money off the board, you would choke them out. And you would be choking them out to the letter of the law. Microsoft still isn't finished with the level of acquisitions and stuff that they want to do.
Dude,
but we're just dealing with these 2 emails back and forth where you tried to little junior Phil. You're talking to Phil Dominus Maximus Aurelius Spencer. He's stepping into his name. He's not going to be a junior anymore. He wants to be a winner. He wants this whole generation, since he has been taking over for what Donnie did, and Donnie was in 3rd place. Peter Moore got close to second place.
Yeah.
We can dream all we want and say that Xbox won that generation. Yeah, okay, sure. Dream what you like. The numbers speak differently, right? We just had a very successful generation. Phil has had a better generation, right? I want this to wrap in your head. Phil has a better generation than the 360. King, that's blasphemous. He makes more money. He has more exclusives. He has a better service. When you look at it on paper and you map it out, I was dumbfounded, Boom. I said, if there's a Mount Rushmore, I was really thinking Peter Moore face goes a little first. No, Phil is a high competitor. Phil face go first. And he's not done. This generation has just begun. Really, I think we're going to get into our swing when Spider-Man launches, when Mario comes out.
Yeah.
I know they're going to say that's 8th gen. It's not 8th gen. You know, what they're doing with the Switch is beautiful. God tier.
Yeah.
God
They
tier
got my
stuff.
money.
Yeah, hell yeah, they got mine. I'm all with you.
I got 75 plus physical games.
Incredible. And I know you got equal as many amiibos.
Dude, I'm missing one amiibo from my whole collection. That's it.
That's ridiculous.
One.
But it's just, you know, this generation is really kicking into swing. COVID really pushed this back.
Yeah.
And these two posturing right now, these two giant juggernauts of companies has hindered progression because they're both trying to look weak in front of something that is pivotal. It's like we can lose a year in order to gain the generation. Of course you would do it. It's a lose ground strategy to win the war strategy, and everybody does it. So, you know, I respect them both for doing what they got to do in order to ensure the victory. But it looks like Sony has no real merit. That's why the FTC looks inept and futile when they're going up against Microsoft's lawyers. And I saw their expert financial analysis guy, Robin Lee. Yee, shucks, he looked like Mr. Lee from Fordham Road. I was like, what's going on here? Absolutely
not Mr. Lee from Fordham Road. Oh my! Oh, if you're from the Bronx, you know what King is talking about. That used to be the joint that was right above the comic shop.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, those are the good old days. Listen, King, I got to catch up on super chats. We've had a dozen of them, and we're going to get into, because I really want to get your hot take on Jim Ryan's. And this is, folks, look, understand that a lot of the things that are going on, I'm looking from a police officer's point of view about when it comes to being on the stand, about aggravating a judge, about being forthcoming with your words because you're under oath.
Right.
And under oath, King, Jim Ryan told both attorneys that he personally has spoken to all of the publishers and developers, and they dislike Xbox Game Pass because it's contradictive and destructive to the industry. And that is an absolute lie, because in the last 24 hours, folks, we have seen one publisher and developer after another putting out, hey, we teamed up with Game Pass. It's good for us. Here's why. One after another. I mean, for crying out loud, Capcom is releasing 2 brand new IPs, one of which comes out next month on the 14th in their dinosaur game, and it's day and date. And for Sony, if you want to buy it, $76.43. It is just bonkers to me. But let me catch up on the super chats. First one of the day comes from a very good friend of ours. Drawn TJ drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Hey, King David, hi, Boom." Well, hello to you, Drawn TJ, and thanks for being here. Kill Antis drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Let me compete." And that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to compete and they're going to win. We also have Simon Brandy drops a very generous £5 super chat and says, Jimbo tried to leverage the ABK deal to also get all Bethesda games in an email to Phil. The nerve of that guy. Entitlement at its finest. Hold the line indeed. Sith Lord drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, KDNN, hold the line. We won't buck up on you, High King. Casual K drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, Phil is the son who beats up their dad in the yard. I love it. And that's exactly what's happening. Titan 2793 drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, Boom and King, two of my favorite podcasters. Hit that like button, brother. Thank you for the generosity, but thank you more so for the kind words. We do appreciate it. Black Ronin drops Black Ronin 357 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Phil is now deboing Jim and telling him it's my Call of Duty now, punk. Hold the line. I love it. We also have Decado. What's up, brother? Welcome back to the show. He drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Jim Ryan has been a spineless jellyfish. Hashtag hold the line. Yeah, I found it very odd that he had such a problem with this deal that he wasn't there in person. Hashtag coward.
Yeah,
folks. Hashtag Jim Ryan is a coward.
Well, I mean, is it cowardice or is it great strategy?
Well, it might be great strategy because if they did cross-examine him in person, he would. I don't know if the dance moves would work with the judge. To be honest with you,
yeah, because they were asking him questions. I don't even know how they got a chance to ask him questions. If he had the Call of Duty license, if he had ABK, would he allow it to be on a competing platform? And
he said he didn't want to answer that.
Right. I told you he would plead the fifth. I told you a long time ago he would plead the fifth on certain tough questions that have a reflection upon his business practices versus Microsoft's.
Yeah. I mean, look, he would have been eaten alive. Eaten alive on the stand if he was there. I think it's a tale of two coins, or two sides of the coin. Cowardice being one of them, the other one being strategic, as you mentioned, King, and I agree with you. It was in the best interest of the FTC not to have the weakest link in your case there to testify against shark lawyers like Microsoft has. So at the end of the day, we're going to get into momentarily the more lies from Jim Ryan about developers and publishers disliking Game Pass. And I can tell you, and King, you know several developers as well as I do, and we know some of the same ones. We have heard, folks, that there's a line out the door to get your game on Xbox Game Pass. And that's a fact, folks. I've heard that from several developers that I know. And the reason why it isn't because Microsoft is overpaying for these games. The one thing that no one talks about, King, specifically when you look at PlayStation, and if you are a small mom and pop 2-person, 10-person, 15-person developer trying to get your game on the PlayStation, in order for it to be put in the light of the gamer's eyes, you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
Whereas if you team up with Microsoft and you drop said game into Game Pass, well, it's automatically featured in what's coming to Game Pass in what month, and you're getting your bag of cash.
Yeah.
And people are playing games that they never thought that they would play. And every time that freaking happens, King, you see a developer, like, for instance, do you remember that Rainbow game that had the developers literally crying on camera because 100,000 people downloaded their game the first day it was on Game Pass?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of stories you hear. And that is why Sarah Bond is working so hard to get the content on there. As a matter of fact, speaking of the Queen, who just did an outstanding job, well, she was in London, King. And she was on her way back. And you know what she did? Because who could deny the Queen? She took a picture of her leaving. And what picture did she take and did she post? The Sega building. Oops, I don't know. That came out that they were going to buy Sega. And guess what, folks? They still are. They're not going to buy them this year. But I am telling you right now, it's going to be announced next year.
Boom, they get them this year. They're going to
go
for it this
all
year.
right, King. You might have
listen.
The inside track.
All right, so you have tomorrow, right? You have tomorrow that everything is up, and then I don't know if we're going to get a quick verdict that's going to be a turnaround verdict, or it's going to be a
There, some
deliberate.
people are suggesting it's going to be the day after the holiday, which is the 5th, would be
Yeah,
that Wednesday,
will be
or
Wednesday.
Thursday.
Right.
Everborn Saga seems to think that the decision is going to come down from the judge on Friday, which would be the 7th.
I don't think so. I think it'll be as soon as possible. If it's a quick turnaround, if she already made up her mind and is fed up with whatever, and she's able to render a verdict, she can render the verdict tomorrow. On a quick turnaround, she doesn't have to deliberate too long if it's already something that she knows. And it will be a great birthday present. Birthday Sunday. Let me see, man. It's just they would get Sega starting in October. They will start the proceedings to purchase Sega. If you thought this deal was hard, Sega is a Japanese company. That one is going to be a rough way to go. All right. It's I've been told a couple of other companies are a whole lot easier. So I believe they do this. I believe this is a strategy before they even go grab Sega. But I believe Sega starts negotiations this year, right? I believe they go right to Embracer Group and say, "Hey, remember those stuff that you sold them for me? As soon as this deal's done, remember that stuff that you was holding me? Okay, cool. Yeah, IO Entertainment, Crystal Dynamics, boom, deal's done. Crystal Dynamics is still working at Microsoft right now. They're still working on exclusive game, the Dragon game for Xbox right now. Those things,
So interactive. Yep.
yeah, they're being worked on now. All right, get those. Pay a brace or a premium for actually doing you the favor and locking it down. Because let me tell you something. What Sony was doing while these guys were locked in key, they went out and they closed deals, right? And they closed deals because they were able to move. Microsoft wasn't able to move. So they went and at studios that they were looking at, they went and got House Marquee. They went and got I know Sucker Punch wasn't up there, but anyway, and they went and got Bungie. Even though Microsoft had the first crack at Bungie and they believe Bungie was a little bit too high maintenance, it was still something that you're able to work around. If they were willing to have Marathon be exclusive, Bungie was not willing to do so. Sony was. That's why those contracts look like for the streets.
Yep.
So we know that they still are in acquisition mode. I don't think they
100%.
waste a breath after this. After this, I believe they become more emboldened and don't make the same mistakes going forward. I think they trim them up. I think they cut off the excess fat. I think they explain it a little bit more in detail. And I don't believe that those deals, especially Sega, is 60-something billion dollars. I think those deals is a whole lot smaller, which doesn't raise the eyebrows of the FTC and the CMA. I think those deals run in the range close to 6 to close to 9 billion. I don't know what their market value is at the moment, but nobody expected Bungie's market value to be $3 billion either. So, I'll figure out exactly what their market value is, but I believe Microsoft goes exactly for those. I think Embracer Group, they go over there first to acquire those pieces that they had there, and they turn and get Sega.
I actually agree with you. I think that's almost immediate, because obviously we learned that Amy Hood, according to her uploaded testimony, that she has the final say of anything under 500 million. It does not have to go to the board. It does not have to go to Satya. She makes the call.
Right.
If they turn around and they go over to get Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and potentially the Tomb Raider IP, which is something there are rumblings that they want.
That'd
want
be
that.
ridiculous. Indiana Jones and
They
Tomb
could
Raider?
for 400. Think about this for a second. All of that and all of those IPs, Embracer Group got for 300 million, right? Which is a ridiculous steal. Microsoft could come in and say, "Hey, listen, the two studios that you're working on, that you have, are working on our first party IPs right now, both Fable and Perfect Dark." That's confirmed, right? We know that Crystal Dynamics is working on Perfect Dark, and we know that Eidos Montreal is helping with Fable. Confirmed, folks. The Tomb Raider IP, yes, it was the IP was licensed out to Amazon. They didn't sell to Amazon. They basically rented to them. That means they could still sell it. If you turn around and you say to Embracer Group, who is hurting for money, by the way, listen, here's 500 or 400 million for the two studios and the IP. They'll take that deal. And I think that as soon as this deal is signed, sealed, and delivered, that's the first stop they're gonna make, King.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think those games is necessary because they're ready in house. You know, you don't even have to give them new ID card SKUs. The ID cards just still work when they're coming in the building. You know, and you don't want to do like what they did with what is this Halo Infinite, with having all these Padim workers coming in and switching out and flipping.
Yep.
No, you just have the same team work on the game from beginning to the end in order to ensure a very good product. And if you need some tech teams to come in to bolster up some aspects of the game, those tech teams can come in, but the core teams are still there working.
Yep.
I believe that happens.
Listen, before we get into Jim Ryan had admitted under oath, I'm still shocked by this, that all publishers and developers think that Xbox Game Pass is destructive and not good for the industry. I don't even know, but Mendingo McThickens, good friend of the program, just very generous $2 super chat and says nothing like a nooner with King and Boom, brother. Thank you for the generosity and thank you for the compliment. Sin Vendetta. Welcome back, brother. How are you? He drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, I've been feeling this arrogance from Jim Ryan and PlayStation since 2019. And I personally, I'm not a fan of it, of this current PlayStation. Yeah, this is not the PlayStation that I remember. The Sean Layden PlayStation was fun. And it was cool to be a part of the conversation. And you can tell that the decisions that were made by Sean were very similar to the decisions made by Phil Spencer, where yes, they are there to make money for their for their investors. It's a business, folks. I get it, but he also led with his heart, and he made games for gamers, and he was always out there rah-rahing every E3. And listen, I miss Sean Layden. I can tell you right now, Jim Ryan proved in court that all he wants to do is take the current model, put you behind an 8-ball as a consumer, and suck you dry. That's what he wants to do. Pause. That's what he wants to do. He does not want to put his games into a service to help you as a consumer. He wants you to spend $76.43, and at some point when Jim decides you're going to pay $100 for the game, you're going to pay $100 for the game because Jim Ryan says so, and because the arrogance that Sony has shown through the entire PS4 and PS5 generation is nothing short of egregious at best. Mandingo McThickens drops a very generous $5 super chat and says it's disgusting how the FTC is negotiating for Sony and how the media just turns a blind eye to all of Sony's dirty tactics, yet continues to bash Xbox. Dreadful Sean drops a very generous $5 super chat and says Sloth just tweeted out that the FTC wasn't going to cross-examine Hood. FTC throwing in the towel. Holy crap. Okay, so
No,
here we go.
She didn't have anything to offer.
Well, okay, well, there you go. Heated Heavy 505 drops a very generous $2 super chat. And Heated Heavy, I don't think I've seen the name. Welcome, brother. If you are new, please consider subscribing, folks. We're 200 and change away from 13K. I mean, we're so freaking close.
Get it, baby.
And wow, we have a monster super chat that came in from JD Gamer. This is outrageous. King, it's a $50 super chat. And he says this: lion crying, dance moves, crack smoking Jim Ryan is running around doing the things he does. He's got the king smacking him down from up above, way down low. PS moved too slow. Now they're next.
Yeah.
Listen, folks, First of all, JD, welcome, and brother, thank you. I don't even know what to say. $50 is a lot of money, brother. I truly appreciate the generosity. King, let's get into it. Jim Ryan on the stand told the FTC attorney that he has spoken to all publishers, and all publishers dislike Game Pass and what it does to the industry. He called it destructive. I call it BS on the highest level. I don't understand how you can. I mean, it's his opinion. I get it. But come on,
I
man. I
think he
mean,
he didn't hear clearly. I think he misheard because Andy Pennant misremembered. So I think he misheard, and I think he misheard destructive for disruptive. I think Game Pass is disruptive in the industry. I think it shakes it up. When you're a disruption in the norm, some people don't like that. People tend to like their stuff the same way. Like I seen people flexing that they're paying $70 for games. It's a weird flex. Me as a gamer, me personally, I would go as a kid, I would go to the arcade and we would have a quarter on a string and we'll check and see if the operator is not around. And we have 50 credits inside and play Miss Pac-Man all day. Shout out to my man Mo Slice that came up with that idea. When we got busted with that, we had slugs. As gamers, we want to game on the highest fidelity as cheap as possible. So anyone sitting there touting that right there, like Game Pass is not the new slug, is not the new quarter on a string, you're crazy. Because if somebody goes inside a store and they spend $70 for said game, and I go and I turn on my console, and because I pay $15 a month, I get to play the same game that they pay for, I'm walking away from there like a thief in the night. All right. So I don't believe at any point in time it is destructive to the industry. It's disruptive because it changes your mentality in how you're going to consume your titles. Now, what it forces you to do is it forces that individual to stay in said service and it forces said service to show the individual why they need to stay. Right? In the beginning, Netflix wasn't as good as it is right now, and they were bleeding money, and they allowed you to share out your account. Now, when they have the content, they started cutting stuff off. Hey, man, you can't be doing that. We want to get our bread now. We want everybody to tune in.
I want to pay.
But you can't lie. When you didn't have the money to go to the movies, Netflix was the most viable option, and you waited it out, and it happened. It's the same thing here. It gives you a reluctance to buy. I started seeing it with myself. Jib doesn't like that because if they can go to a competing service and they know if they wait just a little bit, that game might show up in that competing service, then I'm going to go over there. And guys are becoming more frugal with their dollar.
Yep.
Games that they know that are not coming to the service, like anything from Sony, all right, I'll get it. But knowing that they're only coming out with 1 or 2 games a year, I'm cool. Y'all can get that 140. I'm good.
Yeah.
That's it. And then that's all I got to spend. But I know Microsoft is going to be ramping up these games. Where do you think I'm going to spend the most of my time? So, of course, it's destructive for all the people that he's talking to. He's only talking to his developers. He's only talking to his producers. He's only talking to his environment. He's in the echo chamber. So, of course, I'm not going to say that the man is lying, but he's talking to the choir. He's speaking to the choir. He's going to hear exactly what he wants to hear. He's going to have a bunch of yes men around him that's going to nod and say, you're right, Jim. It is crazy destructive. It's destructive to y'all. To me, it's productive. All right. So, and I know Microsoft understands that it's productive because they're willing to take a loss now in order to make a gain later. If they can see the forest for the trees, it's because they have enough money to go deep into the rabbit hole in order to see their way out the other side. And when Matt Booty says something like we can spend Sony out of business, what he means is we can keep buying to the point that it's not a viable option to go across the street.
Yep.
It's not a viable option to use your money to go over there. Why? Because if they get Ubisoft games here, if they purchase Ubisoft, you're not going to go buy it on PlayStation. You're just going to get it in Game Pass. If if they get WB games, the next Batman, yeah, y'all can have that. We will love to sell you Batman. But if you got Game Pass, come over here, and you can buy it here too. So is the philosophy is different. It's destructive to him in his philosophy.
Yep.
It's disruptive to the industry because it makes you think different. Anything that makes you think different is a little disruptive until it becomes the norm. He doesn't want to put his games day and date inside Game Pass. That will make it destructive to his business model because his business model has to change. And they don't have the financial backing in order to compete with Microsoft in that arena.
Right. Well, we got some breaking news. Apparently, Canada is looking to block the deal, King. Canada's competition, according to Tom Warren of The Verge, Canada's Competition Bureau has just intervened in the FTC versus Microsoft case to correct factual inaccuracies. It says it told Microsoft last month that the deal was likely to result in a substantial prevention and or lessening of competition. Microsoft has responded. It says in lines 11 through 13, it is therefore unsurprising that every single worldwide regulator that has examined the deal, other than the FTC, has rejected this theory that Xbox will take Call of Duty away from PlayStation, including both the European Union and UK's Competition and Markets Authority. Pages 12 to 15, it says, as a result of these efforts, all but one foreign regulator to pass on the issue, Cloud Gaming, has cleared the transaction. The lone exception is the United Kingdom's CMA, but like the European Commission and other global competition authorities, the CMA rejected the FTC's core theories of harm here, tied to the console foreclosure and subscription service foreclosure. Page 17, lines 6 through 9, Microsoft responds by saying, ultimately, Lee's analysis provides no basis on the disregard of real world where Sony has a favorable offer for Call of Duty. Xbox has made plain that it wants to provide Call of Duty to Sony and, in fact, needs to continue to sell to Sony. And regulators around the world all agree that withholding Call of Duty from Sony would be unprofitable and thus not a serious concern. So they are, I mean, listen, I don't think that they need Canada, to be honest with you. I don't think that was one of the big three. Florian Muller is also reporting on it, where he says that it's taken so long for Canada to respond that Microsoft could, in fact, close over them if they wanted to. It says here he has 5 points of contention. He says, so what does this mean for the U.S. situation and for the potential closing of the deal? Florian Muller says the Canadian agency wanted Microsoft to submit the letter to the U.S. District Courts just so Judge Corley knew about the agency's view. However, the letter does not contain anything that makes a preliminary injunction or PI in the U.S. any more likely. The FTC has failed here in San Francisco to make the case for a PI and will ultimately lose. Points 2, as Microsoft's UK lead counsel on appeal, Daniel Beard, KC, explained to the CAT at the initial case management conference on May 30th, the Canadian review is still ongoing, but the review has already taken so long that under the law, the parties are allowed to close the deal. They would only have to face the risk of Microsoft potentially being ordered after a final decision and years of litigation to divest some or all of the acquired assets for Canada. That is different from the UK situation where a blocking decision is enforced at this point. Points 3, King, he says, practically speaking, there is no reason to assume that this point at the closing of the deal would be complicated by the Canadian situation. It still comes down to the US and the UK. points. 4, the Canadian position is different from the one recently taken by the Competition Commission of New Zealand. The NZ regulators merely said that a console-related issue was less likely to give rise to concern than cloud gaming. And even for cloud gaming, they were far from saying that it was a position. The New Zealand regulator basically just said that they were not yet convinced of there being no problems. And his final point, King says, it appears the Canadian regulator just decided to lend their FTC friends a little bit of support, but it is not the kind of support that would make a difference to the U.S. decision or in a worldwide scheme of things. Post Up follows that by saying Canada was always going to follow the FTC. They waited all this time to say something. So, I mean, like I said, the FTC is still going to lose, King. Ultimately, the Canadian, concerns for console SLC will have to be refuted, and it has been all over the world. Again, it's. I mean, Canada's going to do their own thing. I can tell you for a fact. I'm looking at the list now. Canada was not one of the ones that were required for this deal to be passed and closed. So what they'll wind up doing is close and spend years of litigation trying to come up with a plan, or just not put their games into Game Pass, Activision games into Game Pass in Canada, and then their consumers are going to lose out. The same way they would be looking to close over the CMA, which ultimately, and again, I know I had said we were going to talk about it, King. The CMA tried to push the hearing with Cat out into October, and Cat denied them this morning, calling it egregious. And while we get your take on what's your take on the Canadian situation, and I'll pull up the information on what the Cat told CMA.
This would be rude to all my Canadian friends. So I won't say what initially I was going to say. It's just, they're late to the party. They submitted their RSVP a little bit late, and they should have did it in a timely fashion. You don't count. They're gonna and isn't this a way of saving face with your friends, showing that you support? But oh man, I'm late with it, man. I missed it. Well, I thought it was Tuesday. I was supposed to show up Tuesday. You didn't really want to show up, and you ain't really want to oppose anything. You just put it in late and get counted for. It's a way of being counted and saying that you sided with this guy without going against this guy. I don't know. Everybody else submitted themselves in a timely fashion. I find it hard to believe that a whole government body missed the date and nobody followed through with it. So they didn't drop the ball. I think that was something done on purpose. I think it was done strategically to let people think that we were supporting you the whole time, man. We was with you the whole time. We just put it in late. I'm sorry. We use a different mailing system over here. So nothing. It's a nothing burger. Microsoft will close on top of them, and whatever they need, they will, help them out and just make sure that the deal goes through over there. I don't think they're going to do any divestitures over there and split up anything over there in Canada. It won't be necessary.
I don't think so either. So I want to read a good friend of ours, Richard Hogue, commented on the CMA's request to adjourn the Microsoft ABK appeal to October. And he says this: Cat effectively calls out the CMA for game playing, both with dates and sectional and the selection and the selection of its counsel. This is what he highlighted. With great respect, all of this was known on June 12th of 2023, and probably before the date. There is no change of circumstance sufficiently material to permit a revisiting of a listing decision already made. We are unclear whether the CMA will rely upon any other changes of circumstances if the Debain S admission of the factual and expert evidence of relied upon by Microsoft is being relied upon on by the CMA, then this is a bad point. The CMA ascended to the to the admission of the factual evidence, this was not helpful, and said nothing about the risk of the substantive hearing when debating the admissibility of the expert evidence. If the expert evidence was seriously prejudicial to the hearing, the matter should have been raised at the time. So they looked to push this out to October to give the FTC more time, but that's not going to happen here. It appears that the decision from the judge is going to come for the Americas. That's the judge that's overseeing the case right now. I don't think that there's been enough to give the PI. But King, let's get your final thoughts. And you know what? Real quick, did you see the report from CNBC that was actually clowning the
Yeah.
FTC on last night's broadcast? Pretty embarrassing.
Well, I tend to watch Bloomberg financials and CNBC closely when it comes to this, and I get a lot of my secondhand knowledge of the case through their eyes to understand exactly what's going on, because I didn't go to school for law.
Right.
And a lot of times when these guys are talking, I'm completely lost, and I got to go back, I got to rewind, I got to listen. So a lot of times I get the cliff notes from experts that do know how to talk to the layman. And yeah, they felt that the FTC was bungling the case, but they didn't really see an avenue for where the opposition was. But what they did say that is, they said it a long time ago that the FTC was going to block every large tech merger, regardless to win or loss. It's a win to their constituents to show you that I went up against big tech and I lost,
Right.
or I went up against big tech and I won. So the fact that you are trying to block said mergers and acquisitions shows that you are doing your job. Remember, this becomes more political than it becomes more factual. And then when you start looking at the facts, it becomes more of a pissing contest.
Yep.
Whose brand is it now? Is it Miss Khan's brand? Because now she's building a brand. She's tough on big tech. You can see these are political agendas here now. This is no longer having to do with they don't care about video games. Half these people don't even play video games and don't care about the mergers
Yep.
and stuff and acquisitions with this stuff. This is just ways to further their political careers and arenas to stay financially solvent for years to come, to sit on seats that we pay for and do nothing, while the economy chokes and dies and we die with the economy. They are okay.
Yep.
Their pension funds and everything are great, while we're trying to figure out if our pension funds and everything are still okay. So
Yeah.
what you're looking at right now is just political grandstanding on the greatest stage, and we just happen to be stuck into it because this is our hobby here. I have never seen a place where you can go purchase something because you have the money and you can go do it, and you can do it. You can do whatever you want with your money. If you want to go out right now and spend $70,000 on a car and take that car and drive said car off a bridge, you're harming nobody, but you're harming yourself, and you're driving off the bridge. You should be able to do so. That's
Yep.
yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be consequences to what you do, but that's yours. Since when you spend $60 billion on acquisitions and they're telling you make that $60 billion available to somebody else? Could you imagine you go buy a $60,000 car and they tell you, okay, now you got to do Uber Eats twice a week, and you got to make sure that you do Uber rides on Saturdays, and you got to pick up the homeless on Sundays. The hell is wrong with you? This is what this is paramount to. Sony's telling you that they want to use your money to acquire stuff that you paid for,
Yep.
that they don't do themselves. I'm surprised Phil didn't get up there and say, okay, we'll do it. Give us God of War, give us Starfield. I mean, give us a Spider-Man. We'll give you Starfield, and make sure you put Horizon in the box.
Yeah.
When you do that, I'll do this. But he can't do that, right? Because Phil got to play nice, because Phil is the one that's going to lose right now. But you don't see Jim sliding Spider-Man under the door. A favor for a favor. You want to play games? You want to get nuts? Well, let's get nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I think I have one that's just as good as yours. That's like Disney buying Star Wars, and then being told by the courts, "Hey, you paid these millions and billions of dollars. I think they paid $4 billion for Star Wars, which is a steal, but I think that's what they wound up paying." And that's like someone in the court saying, "Okay, so you paid the $4 billion, but you're going to take the Star Wars content, and you're also going to provide it for NBC or Netflix. You're going to put it on Netflix because we said so."
You put it on a competing streaming service, put it on Netflix, and I want you to make it available for HBO Max.
Yep, for free. By the way,
you ain't got to charge them either.
No, don't charge them. Don't do that, because we'll block the deal. Real quick before we get out of here, I do have another excerpt from the Cat. This is where it gets really damning about what Cat is doing. I mean, what the CMA is, what the CMA tried to do, and Cat put the kibosh on it. This is line 23 of the document that was posted this morning, and this is coming again, folks, from the Cat. We consider that the CMA has not paid sufficient heed to the true public interest in this case, which is the swift resolution of Microsoft's notice. The CMA has chosen to revisit a matter already decided, namely at the end of July, early August hearing, and not an October hearing, when there has been no material change of circumstance. Furthermore, the CMA has made this application indefensibly late with no explanation. Finally, there has been no attempt by the CMA to explore either with Microsoft or this tribunal, which in ways to which the burden might be eased. In speedy processes like this, the tribunal stands ready to assist where we can, and to ensure that the inappropriate burdens that were proposed by the CMA are lifted. It is disappointing that such dialogue has not taken place in this case as of yet. Wow, King, like that is kind of really putting the spotlight on the CMA and their complete nonsense and BS. But look, it is what it is. King, I'm going to say this. Thank you for hanging out with me for I think it was 73 minutes. Folks, we're going to end the show, but before we do, I got to catch 2 super chats, and then we're going to get to the outros. JD Gamer drops an additional $5 and $10 super chat. In the first one, he says, "Imagine what Crackdown would have been like if the lead dead hadn't been bought out by Midway through development, or if we had in-house fighting developer." Yeah, I mean, that shooting through the concrete was a tech that Microsoft should have locked down. Like they dropped the ball with that. And he drops an additional $10 super chat and says, "Sorry in advance, Boom, but what is it that the U.S. government isn't doing, wasting my freaking money, globe trotting around the world, calling in favors to block an acquisition that needn't been blocked by the FTC? You suck." Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the taxpayer dollars, King, that are being thrown out the window on one of the most frivolous lawsuits I've ever seen is egregious on a level that I don't even have an explanation for. The best thing I can say is this path that Lena Khan has gone down is simply just making her exit interview that much easier when the next group of politicians take over. She is not going to be in a position, and like I said, for her to have to be allowed to waste money the way she's wasting money is just I don't even know what to say. But King,
what hurts the most is the fact that we're in the biggest recession that my generation has ever seen.
Yeah, yep.
And you younger guys would probably think this is how we had it. No, this is not how we had it. We had it a whole lot better than this. And and to see that, tax dollars that, I mean, and you scrounge for your dollars. Wherever you work, I'm pretty sure that you put in a lot of hours
Yep.
to get to where you got to get to. All right, and it's being just pissed away here on something that is not necessary in this case. If you tell Microsoft, hey man, if you don't stick to the letter of the law, you will be fined. You will be reprimanded in a way that the divestiture will happen. These things will happen. We will ensure to the letter of the law that Call of Duty does stay solvent inside the gaming ecosystem. It would be dispersed to everyone. But this ain't about that. If you gotta listen to what people say without them saying it. All right. This is about Starfield and all of Bethesda games there that's already acquired by Microsoft. That deal's already done. And they're sitting there negotiating on the part of Sony. That is a foreign entity. This is tantamount on treason, people. Our money is going to fight a fight for a foreign entity. This is not cool. This is a foreign company, and this is not cool that my money is backing a foreign company's argument. I stand on the side of the USA. This is where my dollars is. This is where I make my bones, and I expect them to protect me as a consumer and show me at what point in time is Microsoft being anti-consumer. This is what they're supposed to be fighting for. That's what the whole FTC stands for. But FTC is standing for F the consumer at this moment, and I'm not liking it.
I agree. Yeah. They again, they have taken a position to protect a market leader. They have used points from Sony's own uh, 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 um, paid people that make their opinions. I'm very shocked that this continued, but again, ultimately the FTC is going. This is going to be now double-digit loss for them. We'll know by the end, potentially the end of next week. King, I want to thank you so much for hanging out, brother, and dropping it like it's hot as you always do. We didn't get a chance to bring Buck out, but we'll probably see him on Sunday, as we saw last Sunday. And of course, Buck does what Buck does. He keeps it a buck. So, real quick, Raiden Blade drops a very generous £5 super chat and says, "Boom and King, it's funny how the FTC is losing in court. Both CMA and Canadian FTC are colluding. This is trouble for the agencies." Yeah, I mean, listen, the Canada doesn't matter. I'm not being disrespectful to our Canadian brother and sisters. I'm talking about it doesn't matter in regards to the deal. Regulation there. I don't know why they decided now to say something. Remember, it's been reported that they took so long that legally Microsoft can close over them. I don't think it's going to help the FTC's case. The FTC doomed their own case with Jim Ryan and their own experts. So again, we'll learn next week what that's about. And as for the CMA, the more that you hear that Cat wants to uh, move along with this and get this done at a quicker pace, and they keep using the word, King, quicker pace
Yes.
and efficiency. What that tells me is that they are going to ultimately overrule the CMA, which they can do. And if the cloud SLC is satisfied through their intervention, what does that do? What that basically means is that the CAT, the tribunal, does not have to send this back to the CMA. They can simply just approve the deal, and the CMA is going to bend the knee. Or what could happen, because the CMA has not sent their final report. They could say in their final report, "Hey, new evidence was produced. We found it to be satisfactory, and we are going to ultimately pass the deal," like they did for the car company last week. So expect that as soon as this judgment comes down from the judge of the federal courts here in America, you're going to see everyone start to fall in line, because if the FTC loses, that means that they have gotten approval from the EU. They've beaten the FTC, and more than likely the CMA is going to wind up having to cave because they don't want to be the last one. So could you imagine if you're Canada, everyone has approved it or has been beaten, and you're
Poor
Canada and you're
Canada.
like, "Yeah, we're the only ones out of the entire freaking planet that says this deal is not good for consumers. You know what's not good for consumers? The price gouging that goes on. And we learned that you have to pay $20 in Canada for a freaking watermelon. So
Yeah, it's
maybe they
nuts.
should be worried about that. But King, sell your brand, brother. You had an amazing weekend. I saw that you were out there with your buddies from the statues.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got to see Cognito lining up first for ice cream, which good on him. Good on him that he did it because I would have did it too. Sell your brand of the Iron Lords, which I don't think you have to sell because, quite frankly, it's one of the best podcasts and communities in the gaming space that we all hang out in. Talk about what you guys have planned for Sunday. More importantly, what you got going on with Attic on the show that you do with him. I think you're doing that on Friday,
Oh
or is that
no.
today?
Yeah. Well, we're switching up the R&R with the Lords. It's going to be Lord Ty and myself,
Okay, all
and
right,
yeah, Attic is swamped with a lot of stuff, and that'll be on Patreon.
okay,
So you can go to lordsofgaming.net, where we have a ton of writers. We got reviews, we got opinion pieces, we got factoids, and we also have the CMA stuff going on over there. So go check out some of the articles that we have at the site, and you can also see King of the Statues up there. And you can go to Lord's Gaming, Iron Lords podcast Sundays at 1 p.m., where we talk about what's going on in the industry. We talk about everything from gaming, and it's just four guys having fun.
yep.
Sometimes we have interviews with the biggest and best and the brightest, and sometimes we have our friends in the industry on, like Boom. Boom is friends and he's family, and
Thank
we
you,
have
sir.
such a great time, on the show. So that's Sundays at 1 p.m. Saturdays at 10 p.m. If it's a great fight, you can catch Combat Talk with the King. That's myself, where I shoutcast and I give play-by-play, blow-by-blow pause of all the great action that's going on in the ring. Come get some virtual drinks and have a sit down with me. And after that, you can relax. But check that out. That's Combat Talk with the King. You can go see King of the Statues, where these wonderful statues are, at lordsofgaming.net. And remember, IOP this Sunday. This Sunday, you don't want to miss. It's my birthday. So you want to
Nice.
come through and have a good time. And hopefully, they close tomorrow. So they close tomorrow, and I can get a wonderful birthday present. Come on, Judge, you can do it.
I love it. I love it. Real quick, we have Karen's Raisin Potato Salad drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, I got my Hold the Line tee. King, look for the tags. Thank you for the support. Mine is on the way, folks. I'm going to be rocking on one of my shows because, well, listen, who does not want to support King David and the Lords? And Raiden Blade drops an additional very generous £2 super chat and says, late is late. Canada has no say. Your time has expired. Like I said, Canada's going to wind up bending the knee as well because they're going to be the last ones. Like I said, you're going to start to see, King, and I think you agree with this, there's going to be a domino effect in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Obviously, before the 18th of July, which is when this deal is supposed to have its closing date or its expiration date, if you will, what you're going to wind up seeing is the FTC is going to lose. They're not going to get the injunction. Microsoft has to wait 5 days after the judge's decision to officially close. They will wait the 5 days. In those 5 days, folks, you're going to see the CAT, the CMA, and Microsoft come to a very, very suitable resolution for cloud, which there is no SLC. We know that for a fact. And what's going to happen is the last one standing, it is going to be Canada.
That
Canada's
sucks
going to be
so bad.
the outlier. And what they're going to wind up doing is Microsoft is going to say, listen, everyone, we're closing. Let's have a conversation. Let's satisfy all of your concerns the same way we did with the CAT and the same way we did with the FTC. And they're going to wind up coming to a resolution. Ultimately, King, in my opinion, everyone at one point or another in the next coming weeks and months are going to approve the deal, and it's simply going to close because there's nothing wrong with the deal. Call of Duty is staying on PlayStation. Diablo is staying on PlayStation. Overwatch 2 is staying on PlayStation. It's fine. But listen, King, once again, thank you for being here, folks. Thank you so much for the outstanding super chats that came in today. The generosity is mind blowing, and we are incredibly grateful for the generosity. And of course, folks, I'm going to close out the show with something that is incredibly important to me. Hopefully, one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of X Vlog Live.